Hearing black people being subject to exploitation from whites no longer shocks anyone, as this exploitation has once repeated itself so much that it has become normal. Those who find things that happen to black people heart-wrenching will probably lose their hope in humanity after knowing what happened to black women. When both racism and woman objectification came together, the world witnessed the brutality no one could imagine. The protectors became the culprits, exposing how simply being just white allowed you to commit any crime and get away with it. But why were black women subject to whites' cruelty? And why no one is talking about it? Let's find out.
The Black History Archives.
The brutal history of the enslavement of Africans spans centuries, with the transatlantic slave trade causing immeasurable suffering. One specific aspect of this dark period is the sexual exploitation endured by black female slaves. But where did all this start? Zooming in on the years 1690 to 1865, a critical period in the transatlantic slave trade and oppression faced by black individuals during this time. In these dark chapters of history, the lives of black female slaves were marked by a cruel and unjust division of labor. This meant that women were forced to endure strenuous tasks while facing additional forms of mistreatment. However, one of the most distressing aspects of this exploitation was the widespread abuse of black female sexuality, leaving lasting scars on the victims and their descendants. The exploitation of black women during this time involved not only physical labor, but also a gross violation of their dignity. This harsh reality has had a lasting impact on the descendants of those who suffered, affecting the sexual and reproductive health outcomes of black women even today. Examining the historical context of this exploitation is crucial to understanding the persisting disparities. The exploitation of black female slaves not only subjected them to grueling tasks, but also left them vulnerable to sexual abuse. This exploitation was not merely a byproduct of the time, but a deliberate act of dehumanization. The consequences of this exploitation have seeped through generations, affecting the well-being of black women in various aspects of life. The roots of persistent disparities in sexual and reproductive health outcomes can be traced back to this dark period in history. It is essential to recognize the systemic challenges that have taken over time, contributing to the disparities faced by black women today. The exploitation of black female slaves was not confined to one or two nations. It occurred wherever white people existed. This pervasive mistreatment was notably prevalent across the French Atlantic world. The exploitation of black female slaves across the French Atlantic world was deeply rooted in the prevailing social and economic conditions. These conditions created an environment where vulnerability flourished, setting the stage for the widespread mistreatment of black women. Even the passengers were not safe. The journey from Africa to the Americas, known as the Middle Passage, was a horrifying experience marked by unspeakable sexual exploitation. The confines of slave ships witnessed the degradation of black women, who were subjected to unimaginable abuses during this difficult journey. Here's a reminder to please support us so we can make more videos for you by subscribing to our channel and giving the video a like. We want to build a strong community and we need your support. Let's continue now. Apart from this, throughout history, various forms of cultural expression have been weaponized to degrade and exploit black women. This exploitation, often masked as entertainment or control, has left lasting impacts on the perception and treatment of black women in society. One troubling example of cultural expression turned weapon is the use of dance to sexualize and control black women. By portraying black women in a hypersexualized manner through dance, their bodies were objectified for the pleasure and control of others. Another harmful cultural expression that perpetuates exploitation is the stereotype of the angry black woman. As explored in various studies, this stereotype has been wielded to justify the dehumanization of black women in popular culture. By portraying them as excessively angry or aggressive, this stereotype seeks to invalidate the experiences and emotions of black women, further perpetuating their exploitation. Historical stereotypes depicting black women as promiscuous, hypersexual, and sexually available also contribute to their exploitation. Research highlights the long history of sexualized abuse and exploitation of black women during slavery. These stereotypes persist in contemporary culture, perpetuating harmful narratives that undermine the dignity and humanity of Black women. The commodification of Black women's bodies for entertainment purposes is yet another disturbing example of cultural exploitation. This form of exploitation, documented in various sources, reflects a dark history where the bodies of Black women were treated as commodities for amusement and consumption. This dehumanizing practice further entrenched the objectification of Black women, perpetuating a cycle of exploitation. Also, the presence of white women, or rather the scarcity thereof, in the West Indies had severe consequences for Black women who bore the brunt of this imbalance. The shortage of white women intensified the vulnerability of Black female slaves, subjecting them to exploitation as their oppressors wielded unchecked power in this unequal dynamic. The West Indies faced a shortage of white women, creating an environment where power dynamics were heavily skewed. In this imbalance, Black female slaves became even more vulnerable to exploitation as their oppressors took advantage of the lack of oversight and accountability. Focusing on specific regions like Ile Royale and the French West Indies, instances of sexual abuse come to the forefront, revealing the horrifying acts perpetrated against Black women in these areas. The absence of white women further amplified the exploitation faced by Black female slaves, as their oppressors operated with impunity in this unchecked power dynamic. The scarcity of white women in the West Indies had dire consequences for Black women, who experienced heightened vulnerability in the face of unchecked power dynamics. Amidst the widespread exploitation of Black women, the individuals entrusted with ensuring their safe journey home, namely ship crews and officers, were complicit in the sexual abuse they faced. The collaboration of these individuals from various societal levels further emphasizes the systemic nature of this exploitation, revealing how those in positions of authority played a role in perpetuating the mistreatment of Black female slaves. The shocking reality is that ship officers and crew members who were supposed to ensure the safety of the journey became active participants in the sexual exploitation of Black women. To delve deeper into the personal and heart-wrenching experiences of victims, we examine the case of Marie, a Panis slave. Her story provides a poignant glimpse into the life of someone subjected to sexual exploitation in Ile Royale. Marie was sexually abused during her journey, and the whites now try to change this story. The complicity of ship crews and officers in the sexual exploitation of Black women exposes a dark facet of history, where those entrusted with ensuring safety actively participated in abuse. The case study of Marie serves as a powerful reminder of the personal toll inflicted by such exploitation. In times when the evidence of injustice was clear, why was there a lack of action taken? This question echoes through history, especially when examining the plight of Black women subjected to exploitation. Unfortunately, not only were they victims of abuse, but they were also denied the power to file charges against their oppressors. The white men in positions of authority went to great lengths to suppress any attempts to bring them to justice. The suppression of voices and the silencing of victims became a grim reality for those who suffered under the thumb of exploitation. As the cycle of exploitation persisted, so did the efforts of white individuals to conceal their transgressions. Ile Royale, like many other places, became a breeding ground for such atrocities. Studying similar cases and discerning exploitation patterns in Ile Royale sheds light on the pervasive and systematic nature of sexual exploitation during this dark period. By looking into these recurring patterns, we gain insight into the standardized nature of the abuse. It becomes evident that a culture of exploitation was not confined to isolated incidents, but rather perpetuated across different regions. This emphasizes the need to confront the historical injustices and acknowledge the deeply rooted systemic issues that allowed such exploitation to persist. Connecting the historical dots, this exploitation of Black women's last impact on current disparities in sexual and reproductive health among Black women sheds light on the urgent need for systemic change. By tracing the consequences of historical trauma, we highlight the ongoing challenges faced by Black women in accessing equitable healthcare and reproductive rights. Documenting the unthinkable endured by Black female slaves highlights the resilience of a community that has faced unimaginable hardships. This section emphasizes the strength and determination of Black women in overcoming historical traumas, acknowledging their enduring spirit in the face of systemic oppression. Examining how the exploitation of Black female sexuality contributed to enduring stereotypes highlights the deep-rooted biases that persist in modern society. By unpacking the historical origins of these stereotypes, it is necessary to expose the harmful narratives that continue to shape perceptions of Black women, emphasizing the need for a collective effort to challenge and dismantle these damaging beliefs. The sexual exploitation of Black female slaves from 1690 to 1865 was a harrowing chapter in history, marked by unspeakable atrocities that continue to reverberate through the generations. You think whites must remove the ugly history? Isn't it better to take responsibility for what happened and make sure its roots end, so nothing like this ever again? Let us know in the comments section. Do you still feel Black women are not treated right, as they should be in the modern world? Would you like us to make more videos? If yes, please support us by subscribing to the Black History Archives and clicking the bell icon. You can check out more videos on our channel too.